Hi, I'm Sebastian Vlok, CEO of Asobo Studio, and today we're going to talk about aerodynamics. When we started working on Microsoft Flight Simulator, we first studied all the code that has been written on Flight Simulator X. There's been many years of work on all the code base, and the code base of the simulation of the aerodynamics was pretty huge. I will cover 5 areas of improvements that we made to the Flight Simulator aerodynamics and physics. First, we made improvements to the core simulation engine. Second, we made improvements to the actual simulations of the different systems of the aircraft. Then the biggest area we reworked was the aerodynamics. We reworked the aerodynamics simulation from scratch in the simulator. I'm going to go over the details of how the aerodynamics simulation now works. One big area that we reworked was the weather system. The biggest interaction of the aircraft is with the air. It's the air that makes the aircraft fly. And so we reworked how the air was simulated in the world. We're creating a full simulation of the airflow over the planet. And I'm going to explain how the airflow interacts with the world, the environment, and also with the weather. The first big improvement we made to the core of the simulation is a better collision model with the environment. So the system now supports sloped surfaces, which means that aircraft can land on sloped runways, but also on any slope in the world. Aircraft can now land on a sloped field. For example, if you want to simulate an engine failure, you can make a cross-country landing on any surface, including sloped surfaces like fields on mountain slopes. It's going to work anywhere. To make sloped surfaces work, we had to rewrite the friction model of the aircraft. So tires are now correctly simulated with dynamic friction, static friction. All the friction parameters have been improved, and so like the rubber now really behaves on all different surfaces like tarmac, cement, grass, earth, exactly like it should. And also on slopes, if the tires start to skid, they're going to skid exactly like they should with realistically simulated dynamic and static friction. So we also improved the way the bumps on the ground are handled. They are now realistically simulated, and the way the brakes are simulated. So this allows for planes to come to a full stop even on slopes, and that's when they transition from dynamic friction to static friction. And planes can really come to a complete halt exactly as they should on slopes. So when you do a landing on a sloped runway, you can now roll and you can stop on the slope, turn around and take off again. We also rewrote the integration system of the simulation. So the integrator is what makes the simulation go forward. It calculates all the states of the system. So one thing we changed is now that the simulation is running at a much higher frame rate, but the frame rate is adaptive, so it adapts to the frame rate of your actual TV or monitor. This means that the simulation is much more smooth. Whatever the frame rate of your display, even if you have slower frame rates, frames are exactly going to match the display. And also the simulation is always going to run at a higher frame rate. So even if your frame rate goes down, the simulation stays at a high frame rate and you don't lose anything of the realism. Planes always behave as they should, whatever the frame rate. Another big change we made to the integrator is the way the integration now works. It's much more realistic, and it has removed one artifact that was present in previous versions of Flight Simulator, which is that planes felt like if they were on rails. It's because the old integrator was resisting change, and it was forcing planes to always move more or less in a straight line. So the integration is now super realistic. It's exactly moving the aircraft as they should in the world. Spins are much more realistic now, and planes don't feel on rails anymore. So we changed that and removed the effect of planes being on rails. We also reworked the inertia matrices. They are now more realistic, which means that the mass distribution of aircraft feels more real, and planes, when they rotate, when they yaw, when they pitch, when they roll, they feel much more realistic now as they travel through air. So we also made improvements to systems in the simulation other than aerodynamics. We improved the load factor simulation, which also improved the way the ball, the turn coordinator, is simulated. It's now much more realistic, which means that when you fly asymmetric, which means that if your aircraft skids a little, the ball is moving to the side exactly as it should. And you can now control with the rudder your flight and make it symmetric using the ball much more easily, because it reacts much more realistically than before. And so we have now specific fuel consumption, which is realistic per altitude level and which is matching the actual POH of the aircraft. We improved the way flaps can be set in the files, which allows to have more control. We finally reworked the way gears and external parts like external tanks are simulated. Instead of just hard coding the moments they apply on the aircraft, they are actually physical elements in the airflow which are attached to the airframe outside of the aircraft, and they now realistically simulate